Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey, we'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. Each week, we'll come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters. Growth and progress, not perfection. All while developing positive habits for you to utilize in your life. To learn more, please visit positiverecoverymd.com to sign up to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive Positive Recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started. Welcome to Positive Recovery MD podcast. I think we're just going to get started and we are diving right in. Jill is a psychotherapist, author, and speaker. Jill's got just such great experience that I can't wait for us just to kind of start and share with our listeners. She loves seeing other continually building and adding positives to lives as well as diminishing the negatives. She's an author of 2 books that are both available on Amazon.com. Her new book, which promotes discussion and getting along versus ghosting and canceling, is called Bempathy. I love that title, by the way. Looking through children's eyes to simplify communication. And then she has a second book that's on relationships. Meeting people, it's not a game. So I think that you have 2 hot topics that probably a lot of our listeners would be very interested in. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the conversation. But for our listeners, I think you're in for a real treat. And Jill, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell me a little bit about how you wound up working in the space where you actually have an LCDC and an LPC.
And so how I got in this, first of all, I've always worked, and you should never say always. So mostly I have worked with helping people in the mental health field because I have a brother that has paranoid schizophrenia. He's not a paranoid schizophrenic. He's Brad. He has it. So because of that, I've been in the mental health field. I was a recreational therapist with my undergrad. And so I like to teach people how to play and have fun. And then when I got a little bit older and I was in the process of getting a divorce, I wanted to help people so that they wouldn't have to go through what I went through because I really loved my guy and he loved me. We were looking for a therapist like me. And so that's how come I got my master's in this. And then I got my licensure. And then the LCDC came about because I realized I do relationships. And if you have an abuse of some drug or an addiction, it affects all aspects of your life, including relationships. And then I decided to go also get certified in Agala because I love horses, and horses do great therapy, no matter what kind of therapist you are in equine therapy. It really does help people. So that's sort of how I got about this.
Awesome. For our listeners, can you tell us a little bit more about Agala therapy and like how it's used and kind of what that looks like? Because I don't know that all of our listeners know what that's all about.
Okay, so Agala it's an equine assisted psychotherapy, and it's different than a lot of the other therapies because it's on the ground because that's safer. And so what happens is the horses do all the work, actually. So you have 2 people, it's a team effort. So you have 2 people, a therapist and then an equine specialist. And then you come as a client. So Julie, you would come see me and you would come and you would tell us your issues. And then we would talk to you in clean language. So we wouldn't use pronouns, and we'd have you go out in the field with the horses, tell you to search for your anger. And then the horses may represent anger, and they're constantly moving, and you have to relate, or you will relate with the horses and how they're moving along. And believe it or not, that gets you to look into yourself and look out there and really find the answers within yourself. So it's client-centered.
Awesome. Thanks. I know it's a treatment modality that several treatment centers in Houston and all across Texas and across the country use. And so for our listeners, I just wanted you to get a little familiarized with that. Mm-hmm. So your newest book, talk about it, Bempathy.
May I put it up?
Sure, absolutely.
And so I was really excited when you came on and you said, I saw your beautiful face and I said, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to just be voice. It's a good thing that I was dressed up. And one reason I was dressed up, just for your audience, there's something called enclothed cognition. So even if people can't see you, it's really important how you dress. It affects your mental capability. It affects your mood. It affects how you relate. So anyway, so it was a good thing I was dressed up. I could have been a PJs.
I hear you on that, because I know if I'm in my pajamas and it's like 2:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday, I am less energized just because I'm in my pajamas than if I'm dressed. So that's why when we talk with our clients about get up, get a shower, get dressed, that's why.
Yes. So it's really important for people to do that to themselves. Anyway, so just talking about my book, I have been doing Bempathy for a long time, and I trademarked this. So when you come to my office, I banter with empathy. Bantering with empathy is different than bantering with sympathy. And what I've noticed, when you get bogged down and you're doing so much, you may start just bantering with sympathy. That's feeling for the person. It's not the same as empathy, which is feeling with that person. Okay. And you can feel a disconnect. And I would love the audience to really understand that, because a lot of the younger people today, they sympathize, not all of them, they sympathize instead of empathize. So this book has 3 characters, and they're fraternal twins. So there's Beacon, Brighton, and Beau. And Beacon is a minute older, so Brighton looks up to him. And he is the beacon of light. He enlightens her. So therefore she's Brighton and she has starry eyes. The little dog is Beau, and he helps tie everything together. So you've got 3 characters with 3 different personalities. And Julie, there's only 3 different personalities in the world. Even if you take those tests, there's a leader, there's a follower, and there's a compromiser. Even if you have an instigator, I always use that guy in North Korea, he's a leader. So you go through the book and then you empathize or relate with either character that fits you, or you might even relate with all of them. So these characters take you through a fictional story doing non-fictional communicative techniques. And that's my book. So it has 6 elements. I'd like them to get the book to find out what the 6 elements are. And it teaches people how to discuss and get along. And Julie, it doesn't mean you have to love that person. It just is get along, see their side, and then maybe have a conversation. So you know what I tell my clients? I said, this is how it is. When you're at a party, Julie, and you meet someone, let's say you met me and we're having a wonderful conversation. Well, we start talking, we find out what's in common. You might like my glasses. Well, it's a compliment. Remember we talked about compliment. So I feel complimented. You like my glasses. We start to talk about glasses. Well, then we keep talking, and then something may happen where we get a disconnect. And what happens at a party when you feel disconnected from that person that you've been talking with? You go, oh, excuse me, I think I'm going to go over there with the hors d'oeuvres. Or I think I just need to go to the bathroom for a second. I'll be right back. So that's pretty much it. You want to find some connection so that you can commit to a conversation.
For sure. And I think that a lot of times with the clients that we treat, they have difficulty with that connection because they feel so disconnected just from, their substance use disorder, as well as just how the substance use has impacted their relationships, where it's created some of that disconnect as well.
Exactly. And even in this book, when you're doing this communication, Bempathy, we need to also empathize with ourselves. It's the same thing.
I think often people have a harder time doing it with themselves than they do doing it with someone else. And, I don't know exactly what brings that about. Like sometimes it's easier to do for someone else than it is to do for yourself. Maybe that comes in that people start thinking that they're being selfish about it and let me go take care of this first. But really, we all have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves as well.
Exactly. And that's why sometimes when I'm doing assignments and I have people do journals, I'll tell them to put their name in there, and it distance themselves a little bit when they're writing. Julie went and talked to John. Julie went and had fun at the gym. It makes it a little bit easier for them to do the journal and to relate.
Awesome. How much time did you have between writing your first book and your second book?
Oh my gosh. Do I need to say? It was a long time. I think it was about 6 years. I kept on saying I was going to do it. Now, my first book took a long time. So I did a pilot study, and also it was about 10 years of what I did with clients. And so I did my own research, then I did a pilot study on it, and then I wrote it. So the first book in itself took about 10 years. This book, you know what I learned? It's really good to learn from what you do in the past. And so what I learned with my first book is that, one, it needed to be shorter. People want to read, they want to be successful in reading their book. And what I have found in my 30 years of practice, Julie, is that people will get a book, a self-help book particularly, and they'll read maybe about, 3 chapters, and they don't complete it. And if you don't complete something, then you don't feel as good as if you complete it. So I made it nice and short. You can take it on your airplane. You can even take it in the bathroom. And it takes a very short time to read. So therefore, you feel successful after you've opened the book up.
Fantastic. So you have a private practice?
Yes.
Located here in Houston, Texas?
It is. It is right off the Beltway in Richmond. It is 10700 Richmond Avenue.
Gotcha.
Suite 147.
And would you say that there's, for our listeners, just in case anyone's looking to connect, is there a certain population or a certain group of people that you tend to kind of be drawn to supporting and helping, or,
Yes.
Would you have a more generalized approach?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because you are positive recovery. I do positive therapy. So I like clients that want to get better. They don't want to just sit there and talk about their issues. They want to talk about their issues. They want to get some resolution, even after the first visit. So I am very active in my therapy. I even say it's more like coaching, and that's how come I've trademarked this Bempathy. So it's really more like that. So you come on in, you tell me what's going on, we banter, we get some type of resolution, and you move forward. So I use all the stuff that's happened to you in the past to motivate you to get from A to B.
Awesome. So it sounds a lot like solution focused. It sounds like you are not someone that, has really like 3-year plans with folks, that you really want to help people get to where they're going in a time frame that is, helpful to them.
Right. And everyone is different. Even in the book, I say identical twins are different. They have different fingerprints. They have different retinas. We are all different and unique. And that is how come there are so many different self-help books out there, because everyone is unique. So when you come see me, you are unique and you get treated uniquely.
Gotcha. So just to spend a little bit of time on your second book, which was Meeting People, It's Not a Game, what would you say the biggest focus of that book is, and who do you think should read it?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you why I wrote it. So I was single for 24 years after my first divorce, and hopefully the only divorce. I'm married now. I was reading, I was a therapist. I am a therapist. And I would read all these self-help books. And I was one of those people that would read some of it, and that would be it. I'd try it and it wouldn't work. And then I would feel so bad about myself. I would think, what is wrong with me? So I said, I want to write a book that everyone can relate to. And the book basically says, Julie, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just wonderful. I tell people they're like that 1968 Camaro. It's a classic. You don't want to make it a Mercedes. It wouldn't be that beautiful classic. You want to polish it up, realign it, maybe tune it up, and that's it. And so that's how I think of people. That's how come I wrote the book. And the book is for people. And I've asked people what they thought. So I first wrote it for single people. So the first part is, how do you meet that special person that's for you? Okay. The second part is, well, once you meet the person, what do you do? So I've had people that are married that have said that this book is very good even for them. So it's for singles, and it's also for the second half is, when you meet them, how do you continue having that wonderful relationship?
Fantastic. And both books are available on Amazon.com.
Yes.
And again, we're talking today with Jill Robin Payne, and her Facebook is also Jill Robin Payne. We'll make sure our listeners have ways to get in touch with you, Jill. We're going to move into the next section of our fun kind of rapid fire questions. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you're just going to respond with whatever comes to mind first. So what is your favorite sound?
What is my favorite sound? Laughter.
What is your least favorite sound?
Sirens.
Do you live in a place where you hear lots of sirens?
Close by.
What's your favorite word?
My favorite word is temporary.
Nice.
Because everything is temporary, including life. So it makes you enjoy your happiness longer, and your sadness, you know, it's going to go away sooner or later. So, and then, I'm sorry, what did you say? What was the other?
Your least favorite word?
Lazy. I don't believe in laziness. I believe that people lack the motivation. And once they find out what motivates them, they will do it. So I don't believe in laziness.
If you could have any job other than what you're already doing, what would it be?
I'm going to laugh. A ballerina. I loved dancing when I was younger. And of course, at this age, Julie, I wouldn't be a ballerina. So that's in my fantasy.
If there were a job that you would absolutely loathe doing, what would that be?
It would be a janitor, because I don't even like cleaning in my house. My husband does that.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like you have a wonderful husband.
Actually, yeah, he is. You know, he never yells. He's my second one. So yes, he never yells.
Nice.
He is pretty nice.
Let's just say you get to the pearly gates and God's up at the holy gates, or whatever you believe in. What would you like to hear?
I'd like him to say to me that I help the world be a more friendlier place.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So the next section that we go into is, I know Jordan sent you your positive intervention. Day 53 is what we're looking at today. So for our listeners, we're going to go through, and this is something that you can certainly try at home. But the quote that it opens with is by Joseph Addison. There is not a more pleasing exercise of the mind than gratitude. It is accompanied with such an inward satisfaction that the duty is sufficiently rewarded by the performance. And so a lot of folks in recovery talk about gratitude lists, but really, if everyone were to keep a gratitude list, it really just does serve as a gentle reminder of how there is so much right in the world, and there is so much right going on in our own personal lives. Right. And so when we ask folks to do this positive intervention, it appears kind of simple, and it's really not always that easy. So we ask people for several nights in a row. So for our listeners, for the next 4 nights, write down 3 good things that happened to you each day, and then explain why these good things happened to you. And then finding out why these good things happened is the most important part. So you're looking for qualities in you that played a part, and accept these as permanent and pervasive parts of kind of your life experience. Don't just dismiss them to luck, right? Like a lot of times we say things like, oh, I'm just really lucky. Like an example will be, oftentimes people will compliment me on my children, and I say, yeah, I'm so lucky that. But like, I'm not really lucky that, they are a certain way, because I am and have always been an integral part of who they became as adults. Now, in some areas, not so much, but like, I do know that I wasn't lucky. I was intentional in how I raised my children, all 3 of them. And so don't dismiss it so much as luck. Look for what part of you shows up in things, and then be optimistic about the why, and using that example of me raising 3 children. I do have 3 adult children, and each one of them is totally unique in their own way, totally fantastic and amazing in what they do, but so vastly different. And then I know that I played a part in some way, big or small, in their day-to-day successes for sure. So Jill, when you think of, I know that this is something that's supposed to take place over 4 days, but for our listeners, please go ahead and think about doing that. But think of one good thing that might have happened to you yesterday. And let's talk about that for a minute.
I'm going to tell you. So I was thinking about, and I'm going to keep bringing up my book, because I have right in my middle of my living room, I have this huge piece of paper, and it says Bempathize, because I told my husband that I won't say what I was saying to my husband. And I was saying all the things that, let's just say that I didn't want him to do. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's not what I tell my clients. I tell them to say what you want, not what may have been. And so yesterday I had an epiphany with Jill Robin Payne, and I told him, and honest to God, after I told him, I said, honey, you take me out all the time. You are so sweet to me, and you romanticize, and you all these things that maybe he's not doing. And honest to God, I should say honest to gosh, I don't want to say God. He made reservations today for our year anniversary for Valentine's Day to a very romantic place. So let me tell you, y'all, it really does work. So that was my wonderful thing that happened to me yesterday. I had an epiphany. Gosh, Jill, walk the walk, talk the talk. And I did. And so look what it got me.
Almost like manifesting, right?
There you go. Speak it. Therefore it is. That's in the Bible. There you go.
Very good. So in terms of gratitude, obviously we have a lot to be grateful for. And we had some fun conversations even before we kicked off the start of the podcast. But if you want to just kind of think about something that you're grateful for, and then take a look at maybe not dismissing how you got that. And let's talk about that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the best thing that I've ever done in my entire life, and he knows it, is my son, Taylor Payne. And he's a resident in College Station right now. And I am very proud that when I had my divorce, that I put him first and knew that he needed to see his dad every day. And so he has another family. And matter of fact, he has a brother. It's his half brother, just like his brother. And they are so close that they are rooming together right now. And the brother, who is 7 years younger, just got in medical school. So they're following in each other's footsteps, went to the same undergrad. And I'm very proud of myself. And I suffered because I put him first, because I feel children are the key to having a wonderful society. And so I did that. So I get real serious about that. And he knows that I think he's wonderful. He's not perfect. He's as perfect as I can have him. And that's what I'm very grateful for.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing a bit of who you are, Jill, and with me and with our listeners. I really appreciate that. Again, if anyone wants to be in touch with Jill, probably the easiest way to do so is on her Facebook page, which is Jill Robin Payne. And go ahead out there and go to Amazon.com and look up Bempathy and meeting people. It's not a game. Jill, thanks for being a guest on our podcast today. Thank you very much for our listeners. And time to sign off. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecoverymd.com to sign up to get your daily positive intervention sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4-SOBRIETY, which is 877-476-2743. We are here to help.